To the Germans, the Tirpitz was the queen of the north. To Churchill, it became an obsession. It was the beast, and one that had to be destroyed. On the night of January 30th, 1942, 9 Halifax and 7 Sterling bombers took off from Scotland to attack the beast at Trondheim. However, due to poor weather conditions and severe icing, the bombers failed to find their target. They returned to base without having dropped a bomb. On March 1st, the convoy PQ-12 sailed from Iceland bound for Murmansk. At the same time, convoy QP-8 left Murmansk on the return trip with a total of 31 merchant ships. Convoy PQ-12 was escorted by 2 battleships, a battle cruiser, an aircraft carrier, 2 cruisers, and a dozen destroyers of the home fleet. A powerful force that underlined the threat now posed by the Tirpitz and her companion surface raiders. On March 5th, a German Condor long-range reconnaissance plane spotted convoy PQ-12. The Tirpitz was ordered out to sea with 3 destroyers. Due to bad weather, the Tirpitz was unable to find the Allied convoys, which proceeded on their mission. One unfortunate straggler from convoy QP-8, the Eora, was intercepted by one of Tirpitz's escort destroyers, the Friedrich Inn, and was promptly sunk. The Tirpitz soon arrived, hoping to find another convoy nearby, but were quickly disappointed. The sinking hull of the Eora was the only enemy ship ever sighted by the Tirpitz throughout its service in the Kriegsmarine. The home fleet was quickly closing in as the hunter became the hunted. Aware that the Bismarck had been crippled by torpedo bombers, the aircraft carrier HMS Victorious dispatched 6 albacores as a reconnaissance force, followed by 12 more loaded with torpedoes. At 8:02 on March 9th, they sighted the Tirpitz. The German battleship immediately launched 2 Arado floatplanes to intercept the attackers. However, the British torpedo bombers had difficulty getting into position because of a strong headwind and icing on their wings. 3 separate attacks were made on the Tirpitz by the slow-moving albacores through a storm of anti-aircraft fire. 2 were shot down, and with skillful seamanship on the part of the Tirpitz, all the torpedoes missed their target. The closest was 150 yards. After the attacks, which lasted less than 10 minutes, the Tirpitz retreated at high speed and sought refuge in Bogen Fjord, near the port of Narvik. 4 days later, it returned to its hideaway in Trondheim Fjord. In March and April, the Royal Air Force made 3 more bombing raids against the Tirpitz. The first was foiled by a smoke screen generated by special smoke canisters placed around the battleship. The second raid was launched on April 27, 1942. A combined force of 43 Lancaster and Halifax bombers attacked the Tirpitz with bombs and a new form of anti-ship mine. The Halifax bombers were led by Wing Commander D.C.T. Bennett. He recalled the raid and the use of the special mines against the Tirpitz.
Well, the idea was that we should try to roll mines down the steep sloping side of the fjord so that these mines went underneath the weak bottom of the hull and could blow a way through. We had to go in low, and this in a place which was very heavily defended, in fact the most heavily defended place outside Germany itself. I was hit fairly frequently before I got to the coast. In fact, I was a flamer before I got to the island from which we were doing our timed run. But when we got to the ship, unfortunately, there was thick fog, and Although I did get a fleeting glimpse of the masts as I went overhead, it was hopeless. The flames were throughout the starboard wing by that time, so I gave the order to abandon aircraft. Unfortunately, I had no parachute, which was a bit worrying, but fortunately the flight engineer came back and actually got it out of the stowage and gave it to me before he left. The starboard wing folded up at that moment, and I went as quickly as I could in the circumstances, and my chute opened just before I hit the snow.
The third raid took place the following night and was also unsuccessful. A total of 107 aircraft took part. 13 were lost, but the Tirpitz was not hit once. The Allies were under intense pressure from Stalin to send more aid convoys, despite the 24-hour daylight which made them vulnerable to German attacks. On June 27, 1942, convoy PQ-17 set sail from Iceland. It traveled as far north as the pack ice allowed, but on July 4th, the Luftwaffe struck in force. Screen actor Douglas Fairbanks Jr. was on board the cruiser USS Wichita, and he recalled the air attacks.
Well, the day was full of action and reached a crescendo late in the afternoon. Sometimes we couldn't even see any of the ships that weren't really too far away from us because of the smoke and some of the ships that had blown up. And the battle got hotter and hotter as the day went on. And then later on in the afternoon, late afternoon, early evening, there was a momentary lull indicating that we had decisively won the first round.
Soon, the Tirpitz and her powerful battle group of cruiser and destroyer escorts were shadowing the convoy to the south. A Norwegian secret agent relayed this information to the British Admiralty. The First Sea Lord, Admiral Sir Dudley Pound, was deeply disturbed by this intelligence. A closely packed convoy was a sitting duck to a powerful warship like the Tirpitz. During the night of July 4th, Admiral Pound sent a fateful signal ordering the convoy to scatter. In charge of the convoy's close escort was Commander Jack Broom aboard the destroyer HMS Keppel.
Could only mean one thing, and that was that she was here. She was on the horizon. Up went all our glasses, focusing on various quarters of the horizon. And I remember expecting somebody to say, "There she is. There's a gun flash," something like that. So I thought, well, there's no time to lose. She might be on us. She probably is on us. So I shot into the convoy in Keppel, went alongside the Commodore, switched on the loud hailer, and said, "I'm sorry about this," or something, and you could see the Commodore standing on the wing of the bridge. He didn't seem to believe it.
None of the captains in the convoy could understand why the signal to scatter had been given, since the Tirpitz was nowhere in sight. However, they followed command. Alone and without escorts, the unarmed merchant ships became easy prey to the marauding German bombers and U-boats. Out of the 35 vessels of convoy PQ-17, 23 were sunk by bombs or torpedoes during the next 3 days. The Tirpitz achieved a resounding victory without firing a single shot. The Allies learned a hard lesson. They realized that they needed precise intelligence on the Tirpitz in order to trap and sink it. Early in 1940, Prime Minister Winston Churchill set up an organization to support resistance movements in Nazi-occupied Europe. It was called the Special Operations